Hi, so this is our final unit. This is the last time you guys are going to have to listen to these online recordings. I just want to remind you that your final exam is going to be in kind of two parts. One part of it is a Unit 5 exam. You guys have seen exams like this. This is true, false, multiple choice, matching, short answer, long answer, all of that. And then the units 1 through 4, this is the cumulative aspect of your final. These will be pretty straightforward multiple choice only. I can't type. Straightforward multiple choice. Okay, so the final cumulative part of it is pretty simple. Most students do really well. The average on that is usually upper 80s. All right, so don't freak out too much about this part. Focus most of your attention on the Unit 5 aspect. Okay? So Unit 5 consists of a few different parts. We'll go through the spinal cord really quickly, and then we'll talk about the peripheral nervous system, and then we'll talk about special senses, so vision, taste, smell, etc. Okay? So spinal cord includes the spinal cord itself, all these little nerves that branch off of it, and then the reflexes along with it. The spinal cord is split into 4 regions. You guys are familiar with these bones already, and they're named just like the bones. So the part in the neck are called cervical, the part in the mid-back are called thoracic, low back are lumbar, and then in your sacrum are called sacral. There are a few enlargements. So there's a cervical enlargement right by your arm, and then there's a lumbar enlargement right by your legs. So this is how you get nerve signaling to your arms and your legs. The cauda equina literally means horse's tail, and you can see these nerves down here end up kind of branching out a little bit more. We have 31 pairs of nerves, so on either side, the spinal cord branches off to form pairs on either side. Some of the functions, so conduction you guys are familiar with. This is sending electricity to allow us to send information. Reflexes, so these are involuntary and stereotyped. This is like if you put your hand on the stove, you'll quickly remove it, and you don't need to think about it. It's just a quick reflex. Central pattern generators, we won't go through a whole lot, but this allows us to do things like walking. So it controls muscles in your legs called flexors and other muscles called extensors to contract and relax at the right time so that you can create a pattern. Locomotion is movement. So spinal cord allows the control of movement to have you coordinated and kind of walking or running or whatever you'd like to do. So each pair of spinal nerves receives information from organs in the skin. So these are sensory neurons that bring information toward the brain. And then each pair of spinal nerves also sends motor signals to muscles, glands, and organs. So these on top are sensory neurons, okay? And then these on bottom are motor neurons. The spinal cord itself is part of central nervous system, but all the nerves around it are part of peripheral nervous system. So this thing called a dermatome is used when we talk about spinal cord and spinal nerves. It's basically just a map of which part of the body is innervated by which nerve. So for example, you can see the letter C and then the number 2. So that means the second cervical pair of nerves. They go right into the cheek here, so they innervate the cheek. Cervical 3 gets upper neck, cervical 4 gets lower neck and shoulder, 5, cervical 5, all the way down to the fingers, and so on. So this is really useful clinically to tell us, like if you went into the clinic and you were like, hey, I'm having numbness and tingling on my big toe, they can use their dermatome and kind of follow where that goes and say, oh, you must have damage to your lumbar foraspinal nerves. Let's take a CT or an MRI of that region to kind of do more investigating about why you're having tingling in your toes. So in order to have complete loss of sensation, you need to have damage to nerves on either side, because this is kind of like a general map, but multiple nerves are innervating each part. So this allows us, even if you completely damage your T1, your other nerves on either side of it kind of overlap so that they would allow you to still have some type of sensation and movement. The meninges that protect the spinal cord are basically identical to the meninges that protect your brain. So same as brain, we have outer dura, arachnoid, and pia mater. So reflexes, like I said, are quick, involuntary, and stereotyped. So these are automatic responses that occur without our intent or often even without our awareness. So you might have a reflex that you don't even know about. They're very quick. The axons are myelinated and there's few neurons, so there's less synapses, less signaling that happens. So this is really, really quick. They're involuntary, we don't have control over them, and that makes them also difficult to suppress. So if you touch your hand on the hot stove, you pull it away immediately, even if you're like, oh, I want to burn myself for whatever reason. If you put your hand on the stove, it's still gonna pull away. Stereotyped just means they're gonna be the same predictable response and that they're simple. Stimulation, so we need some type of a stimulus in order to cause a reflex. They're not just going to happen randomly, hopefully. We have two different types of reflexes that you need to be aware of. So there are visceral reflexes. The viscera are like your organs. And an example of this is a baroreflex that is controlling blood pressure. So there are sensations in your carotid arteries in your neck that help to tell you how much pressure there is, and they will reflexively tell the heart what to do in order to control that, and that will signals to other organs in the body to control blood pressure. Somatic reflexes are skeletal muscles. So these are like touching your hand to the stove and then you remove your stove. That's a muscle reflex. The last type I just want to briefly touch on, you don't need to know this, but cognition reflexes, these are like things that you learn that you're trained to do. So for example, when you were a kid and you were in elementary school, the lunch bell would ring and then you would go eat. Lunch bell would ring, you would go eat. You eventually got trained so that if the lunch bell rang, you would start to feel hunger and start salivating in your mouth because it's lunchtime, even if they just rang the bell by accident or whatever. So these are learned reflexes. They're not actually true reflexes, but they're kind of talked about in this same context. So this is the reflex I've been talking about, the flexor withdrawal reflex. So brain is not involved in this. This just happens in the spine. So what happens? The stimulus here is the heat. There are little thermal receptors in your finger that receive this information, send it via an afferent sensory neuron to the spinal cord, which is here. Here these nerves synapse with the efferent or motor neurons, and the motor neurons go to the muscles. They tell the biceps brachii to flex, and they tell the triceps brachii to relax. When that happens, your arm is lifted up, and that's the response. So now we'll talk a little bit about peripheral nervous system. I'll do just a quick introduction, and then I'll get more into it on the next video. So peripheral nervous system is everything that's not your brain and spinal cord. Okay, so peripheral nervous system has a sensory and a motor division, and those are each split up into the viscera and the somatic divisions. The viscera are your organs, and the somatic are your muscles. And then within the motor visceral, we have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic that we call autonomic nervous system, which is your fight and flight and your rest and digest that we'll go through. So autonomic nervous system controls basically your whole body. And this side, this is your sympathetic division. And then on this side, this is your parasympathetic division. So you can see each organ is controlled by both sides. So the eye, for example, has a neuron coming from the sympathetic side and also from the parasympathetic side. Same goes for the rest of these organs. So your salivary glands, your trachea that you breathe through, your heart, your liver that digests all your food with your stomach and your large intestine here and small intestine here, kidneys, and your urinary bladder. So basically the goal of the autonomic nervous system is to cause homeostasis. So it does this through everything that's not a skeletal muscle. So your glands secreting different enzymes, your heart, your smooth muscle in your digestive system, and your arteries. And then, like I said earlier, both divisions are usually partially active. Basically, all your organs have some type of connection to both sympathetic and parasympathetic. So your sympathetic nervous system is what you call fight or flight. This is an emergency response that you have in order to run away from a bear quick. So this is providing you quick energy and fuel so that you're ready for physical exertion to run away. So you have increased sweating, increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, increased blood sugar, blood glucose, and then we decrease digestion and urination. Parasympathetic, you can see this dog, picture this dog for parasympathetic. This is your rest and digest. This is usually locally, so acting just on each individual organ. So increase your digestion and urination, your pupils constrict, your heart rate decreases, your blood pressure decreases, your blood glucose decreases. It's basically the opposite of sympathetic. Okay, so sympathetic, picture this crazy guy. He's dripping in sweat. He's got high blood pressure. He has high heart rate. He's ready to fight a bear. This dog is relaxed. It's digesting. It just had a dinner by the pool. Heart rate's low. Pupils are constricted. And I'll go through the details of this on the next video.